it's a parallel way. Okay, this is an interesting question. This is an interesting question. How do we encode free will into AI? Sometimes the best decision for a situation is not the most algorithmically efficient one. Isn't this where humans will always have to step in, no matter how sophisticated AI gets? I completely agree. So that's why I was emphasizing these boundary conditions. First of all, AI will not have free will because AI doesn't have any intentions. So just to give you an example, so when Uber uses an algorithm to decide how to pay their drivers, for example, they'll accept this more from an algorithm than from a boss, especially if the salary increase will not be that much as they expected. We're quickly there to blame a human because we will think that that was his or her intention. But we know an algorithm doesn't have intentions. So, and this is also what I mentioned. With every application that we see with AI and the development itself, we see rapid developments. But no matter you talk to someone who develops robots, works in natural language processing, in machine learning, they will all say the same thing at the end of the day. The problem will become the reasoning, coming up with the new things that they understand is going to be meaningful, because they don't have the meaning of what it means to be human. And we will all, that's a problem we were running into, and most of them don't know when we're going to solve this. This is going to take at least several decades. We can imitate. So when we talk about emotional intelligence for AI, we're still talking about imitation of emotions that people will recognize. And yes, because of their reward centers in the brain, will respond to it almost as much as we will respond to emotions of a person. But once we realize, again, it's from a machine, it will lose its power. Like I gave the illustration with creativity. Once they knew the painting was made by an algorithm, it lost value. So in order, and this is why I link it to leadership, in order to keep people motivated, there needs to be an authentic element. Okay, to ensure fairness of outcomes of AI, shouldn't algorithms code be made transparent so they can be controlled? Yes, of course. So this is something that's happening worldwide, but also Singapore, in the second version of their AI governance documents, they're very much emphasizing this. So it needs to be made transparent. But of course, here we start with a conceptual issue again. What's transparency? So because for many people, an algorithm and AI is a black box. So what is transparency means can be like, we know the code. And this is happening, for example, now. At this moment, when in Singapore, we're talking about the wearable device we all will have to wear, because most people don't download the app. So we'll have a wearable device. And the government has said, like, it's open source. So everyone can check the code, and you can see that after a number of days, your data will be erased. So if in that period of time you didn't become sick, your data will be erased and they're gone. That's fine. And that's a very formal procedure. And why am I saying formal? It ticks a box, and it's good for people who can read code. So hence it's good to learn code, but most people can't. They can't go in, or they don't put in the effort. It's also a perceptual issue. People comply with things like this when they perceive it to be fair. And that's a much broader thing. That's social. Fairness has a social function. It makes that we want to be in a society because we believe it's fair. So we can trust it. It's legitimate. So there's always more. So transparency will also be related to, once you make a decision with a code, are you going to be accountable for it? So when it goes wrong, will you correct it, for example, in favor or to do justice for the ones who have been impacted? These concepts are all related. So again, you see, it's both ways. It's not only transparency at the level of the design of the algorithm, it's also transparency in terms of, like, why do you want to use this algorithm for that purpose? And are you accountable for it? Okay. Okay, because of the nature of current narrow AI limitations, it seems more suited for very specific tasks. However, the more senior the leader, the broader the working context required. So it seems current AI is a worse fit the higher the organization we go. Could you share examples of AI working effectively as the level of senior management? I like your summary, and that's more or less what is happening. The higher you go, of course, there's a lot of responsibility as well. The C-suite carries a lot of responsibility, but we also want to make our C-suite effective, which means when we hire consultants, usually consultants are in an organization, human consultants, they try to collect information, communicate it to the board, and we hope that all the information out there was summarized and put together in such a way that the board can make smart decisions in terms of the strategy. AI is so much better in getting all that information out there and summarizing it. And so it's the narrative. So you have narrative algorithms who can, there's a lot of work going on this, much better. But what still is required is, why do we use those data? How do we connect it? How do our stakeholders respond to it? And that's a big responsibility, again, for our C-suite. And there comes responsibility, accountability. So legally, an algorithm is not held accountable. So yes, we need to have leaders who are aware of what is happening and how to get the most information out. And that's where I say in our education, we need leaders that they are tech savvy enough to understand where and how to implement what kind of AI-enabled system.